Hi and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Bitrix24 Live. My name is Andy and I am the support manager here at Gold Partners Interface. And this session today is going to focus on tasks and projects inside Bitrix24. It's the third part of our remote working series, and it's solely going to focus on how you can create tasks inside Bitrix, not only for yourself to complete, but for other members of your organization. And furthermore, what it will also focus on is how we can organize those tasks into projects. So we can create multiple projects with defined start and end times, and then we can assign our tasks to those specific projects. And I'll show you all the ways of how we can create them, how we can import tasks, how we can create project templates. So there are going to be a whole range of different tools that we can use, and I'm going to show you live on the screen today. So if you have any questions during this session, please do put them in the box on YouTube and we can answer them as I go along. Just a little bit about Interface first of all. As I mentioned, we are gold partners of Bitrix24. We have an office in the US, the UK, and in Dubai, and we offer a whole range of different services. So we offer pre-sale support. So if you're looking to get involved in using Bitrix, then we can provide you with a one-to-one demonstration of all the different tools that Bitrix offers to ensure that it's a perfect fit for your organization. We also offer, obviously, licensing. So any licenses you're interested in purchasing, we offer the facility to purchase those. And we also offer implementation and installation services, especially if you're going to be using the on-premise version of Bitrix, then we offer an installation service for that package. And then finally, we offer some some post-sale premium support. So we offer a ticketing support, but not only that, we also offer telephone support too. So you can give us a call if you've got any problems, and we can answer any questions and have screen share sessions to fix any issues you may be experiencing or any support that you might need. So as I mentioned, this session is solely going to focus on the tasks and the projects element of Bitrix. So let's jump straight in and show you all about the tasks and the projects inside Bitrix. So I'm on a cloud version today, so all the features I show you today are going to be available on the cloud version of Bitrix and also the on-premise version. So it doesn't matter what version of Bitrix you use today, everything I cover is going to be available on all of the versions of Bitrix. So the starting point obviously is going to be in the tasks menu on the left hand side. So the tasks menu on the left hand side gives you access to all of your own tasks. So when I mentioned all of your own tasks, that's tasks that you have created, you are responsible for completing, that you are maybe a participant in, or maybe an observer in. So these are all the tasks that you have some kind of involvement in. So it's quite important just to understand that, because you might create a project inside Bitrix that has, let's say, 100 tasks, but you would only be responsible for, let's say, 5 of those tasks. So when we click into the tasks section on the left-hand side, you won't see the full 100 project tasks within this area, because you are not involved in all 100, you will only see the 5 that you have some kind of involvement in. So it's quite important just to illustrate that, because people do get a little bit confused in Bitrix sometimes that they can't see all the project tasks in here in their My Tasks view. If you did want to see all the tasks in a particular project, then all you would need to do is go to the project group itself, and you would then be able to see a list of all the tasks. So if there was 100 in here, you'd be able to see all 100 tasks by going directly to the project. So let's first of all then start off by creating a task. So it's very straightforward and very easy to create tasks in Bitrix. As I mentioned right at the beginning, you can create tasks for yourself to make sure that you keep on top of things that you need to do, or you can create tasks for another member of your team. That's the most common use of tasks, because you can then easily assign tasks that need to be completed for other members of your team. And it's specifically good when you are remote working, because I can create a task for another member of my team who is in a different location. They'll get a notification pop up to say Andy has created you a task, and then it's their responsibility to go out and complete that particular task. So in here, let's just say we will create a new task, say onboard new employee. And then in here we can say, please onboard a new starter, James Turner. So we give the task a title, give the task a description. We can assign files to the particular task. So if I wanted to on here, I could assign a little image if I wanted to. That will attach to the task. You could embed that task in, you could embed that image into the task if you wanted. So if I wanted to put that icon on here, click on insert into text, and you can see that you can style it up a little bit differently. You can include outbound links if you wanted to. You can style it so you can create quotes, and so if a member of the team said starting 10th April, and what we can do here, just so I can show you what it looks like, it just stylizes it a little bit differently. One of the powerful things in the tasks module itself is the ability to create checklists. Now, checklists are used in tasks to make sure that everything is covered to complete the task itself. So if we click into checklist here, so let me just minimize the file, and you can see once I click on checklist, it adds the checklist item here. So onboarding steps, we'll give this checklist a title. Bitrix have introduced some really cool features now inside the actual checklist tool. So we can say onboarding steps, collect personal information for profile. We can add another item. So maybe what we want to do is actually, we're going to make that particular one responsible for Andy Naylor. And then we will say sign contract. And so on and so forth. So you can really stylize these however much that you wish. We could say Katie Harrison is responsible for that one. If you want to create multiple checklists, you can do. Just simply click on add checklist here, and you can add multiple checklists. And we'll run through actually completing some of these checklists in a moment. Now, the involvement in tasks is quite important. The responsible person is the person who is responsible for carrying out this task and essentially completing it. So that's quite important to know. It's the most important person on a particular task. That's who's going to get notified. That's who's responsible for completing it. We can also include participants. So you can see here we already have 2 that have been added in based on the 2 users that I added into the checklist item. A participant is going to be notified of any changes to a task, any involvement and collaboration in a task. and they're also going to see this task in their My Task list view as well. And finally, we can also add observers. An observer is good if you want somebody to just be able to track the progress of a task and have access to it again via their own My Tasks view. And again, I'll show you all these different views in a moment. So that's the level of involvement. Max Smith is the person, like I say, who is key to this task because they are the ones that need to complete it. I'd always recommend, with regards to the part we're coming up to now, is the time on task. Always put a deadline on a task. It allows you then to track when tasks need to be completed by. Everybody that gets a task and assigns, and whether it's been assigned to themselves or I assign it to another user on the system, they need to know when the task is finished by. It allows them to easily organize their tasks, and we now have a cool view that we can view all our tasks coming and approaching the deadline. So if I said, for this case, the task deadline is going to be 10 a.m. on Friday, the 10th of April, so that's this week. We'll have a look at what that looks like in a moment in terms of the deadline view. But not only is a deadline important because you can visually see when a task goes past its deadline. And in a moment, we can also set some notifications to alert members of your team when the deadline is approaching. So one day before, we can send a notification to ensure that they know that the deadline is fast approaching. We can add a start date and an end date to the task itself. So although the task deadline is Friday at 10 a.m, we might actually want to start this task on Friday at 9 a.m. if we know that this task is only going to take 1 hour. This is particularly good if you want to check out the resourcing of your staff and employees, because then what you know is that Max Smith is going to be booked out between Friday at 9 a.m. So if I was to do this Friday at 9 a.m, it's going to take 1 hour, and then you can see it's Friday at 10 a.m. is the finish. That's particularly good, like I say, because one of the views that Bitrix offers is the ability to see when people are booked out on tasks. And it's really good for planning whether we have the capacity to assign another task to that particular employee. So it's particularly good for that. If we click on more, let's have a look at the other options that we have when we're creating the task. They are quite straightforward. I just want to go through them just to explain some of the features that Bitrix offers. We can assign tasks to projects. So if a project already exists on Bitrix, then we can assign it to that particular project. We'll go through creating a project a little bit later on in this session because obviously projects are a fundamental element. We're creating this task and we're assigning it to this particular project that's already been created. We can track time on tasks. So I've mentioned here that it's actually going to take, we expect it to take 1 hour. I can put it in the task planned time. Now you don't have to put a time in here if you don't want to, but having that task planned time checkbox ticked allows you to have a counter with a start and stop button to your task. It depends how granular that you want to get in terms of recording time on tasks. But the idea is that once Max Smith decides to start this task, he will hit the start button and then it will start counting up, and then he can hit a pause if he wants to take a break, or he can hit finish. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. We can, as I mentioned, you can set reminders on tasks. So if we wanted to set a reminder 1 day before the deadline, we can send an internal notification, or we could send an email. So we can notify the responsible person there. If this is a repetitive task, something that needs to be completed maybe the first Monday of every month. We can actually set that within the repeat task itself. So if you click on every month, and it's going to be the first Monday of every month. And then it depends, if we want to complete it in 6 months' time, we can set it to 6 months, and then it will no longer, after those 6 months pass, start repeating and creating this task. I won't set that in this case. With regards to the Gantt chart, so Bitrix has a great tool to be able to see the task start and end dates within a particular project in a Gantt chart, and you can start tasks when other tasks have been finished. We can assign tasks to clients or deals or leads or companies within the CRM, and that's really good to give your sales team transparency to know that tasks need completing for a particular client. So if I was to assign this to Al's Toy Barn, if a sales agent went to Al's Toy Barn in the CRM, they would be able to see that this task exists. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. So it's good if a client has maybe purchased something from you, you need to create a task to fulfill that purchase, then you can clearly see that the task is assigned to this particular client. And that's how you assign it here. You can also do it the flip way, which we will cover on our CRM session. I do believe it's in around about 2 weeks. On this live session, we'll cover the way of creating tasks in the CRM as well. But as we are in our own tasks module, we can assign the task to a company. We can create head tasks and subtasks. A good example of this is maybe you have a project and it's split up into different phases. You could have a head task of phase 1, and then you might have subtasks sat below that particular head task. Same with phase 2, head task, multiple subtasks. The head task obviously has to exist before you create this. So if I wanted to find one that already exists on here, then we would just select it. We can create tags for searching tasks. So it might be that you have, in fact, we could tag this one employee, and then click on save. And that just allows you to filter these grouped tasks that have all been tagged employee. So this is handy for searching. You can always create custom fields in tasks if you're an administrator. So if all the fields that I've been through don't fulfill the data that you need to store on a particular task, then we can add new custom fields here. And then we can create tasks dependent on one another. So when you create a task that's dependent on one another, obviously it needs to be completed for this one to be completed too. And they're nicely nestled under the actual task that's dependent. So you can clearly see the dependent tasks for this particular task that I'm creating. So if I click on add, then what it's going to do is it's going to create the task and assign it to the particular project. So you can see here, onboard new employee is the task that I've just created. If I click into it, let's have a look at what we've just set up there. So you can see the task title, the description, the checklist. But down the right hand side here are all the statistics that we added. So a start date and an end date. We have when the deadline is. You can see that it's not currently in progress, it's currently been pending. And then you can see the people that are involved in this particular task. So this is the good part. So Max Smith is responsible, Katie and Andy are the participants, and Joe Smith is the observer. So they'll be able to see that in their particular task view. So I mentioned about tracking time. So you can see here, because I have the time planned checkbox ticked, we now have the start time tracker button here. So I can click on start time. What that's going to do is it's going to start counting up, as you can see here. So it's now starting to count up. Now, one thing to point out with tracking time is that you can't start the time tracker on multiple tasks at the same time. It will prompt you to say that the onboarding employee task is still running. Would you like to pause it and continue with this particular task? If you tried to start a time tracker on another task. If you want to take a break, just click on pause. If I just come out of here and just give it a refresh, then go back into onboarding employee. And what we'll be able to see is, you can see in the time elapsed tab at the bottom here, it now has created a new entry into the tracked time. If I want to then just maybe write a little bit of a note, what I did, so I put collecting email and phone. Click on check, so you can make a note and log the time that's been put against this particular task. The other alternative is, if you don't want to go as granular as starting and stopping the time tracker, we can add a new line entry in here. So if I wanted to specify the 7 on there, spend how much time. So if I said I've spent, and doing it this way, you can always do it at the end of the day, which is quite common. So if I click on the little tick, the only difference is with this, it indicates that it's been added manually. So if I come out of here, just give it a quick refresh and come into it, you can now see that the time against the time tracker is 5 minutes and 33, and you can see that the time has been logged. So that's a good way of being able to track the time. Obviously, this can all be reported on. So if we've said that this task should take an hour and actually it's taken us 3 hours, we can see a report on the amount of estimated time against the amount of actual time, and we can then discuss that internally and find the reasons why and improve our efficiency in working in tasks. Whilst we're down here, we also have the history of everything that's happened on a particular task, and you can't delete that. It's there as a log, so you can clearly see what's happened. And then finally, the comments. So the comments are really important on a task, especially if you're working remotely, because maybe another one of our team has created myself a task. I might need a little bit more information to complete this task. So I can type in the @ symbol, and maybe it was Joe Smith. Joe, please can you provide me telephone number? And then what will happen, you click on send, and then that will notify Joe Smith that I've made a comment. The notifications will come through the notification center in the top right hand corner. So all my notifications are here. And it will come pretty similar to this. So you'll be able to see that the task project start. In our case, it will say onboarding employee. You'd click on that, and then you would be able to quickly and efficiently access the task that another employee is written on. So especially working remotely, those notifications are going to be really important, because whilst you're working in separate offices, all you'll do is get a little notification sound and a little red counter up at the top right, and you can always see things happening that are evolved around yourself. It just means that you won't miss anything, essentially. So these kinds of collaboration on tasks are obviously really handy and useful. I would expect Joe to return to this task and write a comment in my reply. So she would click on reply here and then provide me with the information that's requested. So this is how a task looks. Obviously, if you want to finish a task, we'll keep it open for the moment. But obviously, if you want to finish a task, you can just click on finish. That will then remove it out of your My Task list here, because at the moment, we're just seeing the tasks that are currently in progress. So these are all the tasks currently that I am responsible for. So if I wanted to click on this, click on finish, and then you can see now that it's dropped out. And that's why it's a perfect way of getting organized, getting more efficient inside Bitrix to complete the tasks that you need to complete. So if I go back into here, let's just have a look. I mentioned about assigning a task to a CRM item. So in this case, we've assigned this task to the company Al's Toy Barn. If I click on Al's Toy Barn here, what we'll be able to see is that we actually have currently 2 tasks outstanding, but the one that I've created here is onboard new employee. So if your sales guys are working in your CRM, they've made the sale, and that you now have to carry out some internal work to complete the sale, task is the perfect way to do it, because you can then assign it to the company that's purchased something, and you can click on and access the task directly from there. It just gives you very good transparency in terms of the items that need to be completed. You don't just have to assign it to a company, you can assign it to a lead. So a lead's a popular one because you usually have to collect quite a lot of data. Creating a task for that is very, very common inside Bitrix. We could also assign it to a deal, a contact, and obviously we've done it to a company as well. We'll have a look at projects in a little bit in this session because I'll show you how to create a project. But as I mentioned, this area here, I've clicked into tasks. If you weren't on the session at the start, I've clicked into tasks, and this area is all the tasks that you have some involvement in. So at the top, you'll be able to see ongoing. So these are all the tasks that you are responsible for. I would always recommend, if you're working in Bitrix, to have that as the first menu item. If you want to change your menu items, just click on More, click on Configure Menu, and then you can drag and drop these menu items. I would recommend putting ongoing first. And the reason why is that ongoing is generally the most important, because the ongoing are all the tasks that you are responsible for completing. So you can see here, I have a list of 6 tasks that I'm responsible for completing. We also have other filters at the top. So assisting are all the tasks that I'm a participant in. Set by me are all the tasks that I have created for somebody else within the organization. Following are all the tasks that I'm going to be an observer for. And then finally, all tasks is every task that I have some kind of involvement in. So whether I'm creator, responsible, participant, or observer, you can see here. So if I go back to ongoing, like I say, at the start of the working day, I would come into Bitrix, click into tasks, go into my ongoing, and I'd be able to see based on the deadline when these tasks are up and coming and due. Bitrix have introduced a really useful tool for that particular purpose. So if I now, instead of going into the list view where I am at the moment, if I now go into deadline view, I can now see the tasks that are fast approaching the deadline. Okay, so you can see the task that I just added, onboard new employee. I set the deadline for Friday the 10th of April, and it's automatically then categorized this task in due this week. If I was to go to one that's currently overdue, so you can see here this 28th of March, and actually move it back, let's say it's going to be due on the 28th of April instead. So if I update that, you can now see that it's moved the task automatically into due in 2 weeks. Furthermore, if it didn't have a deadline, so if we just remove that deadline out of here, you can now see that the create Facebook page task has gone into the no deadline. These are fixed stages, and it's a fixed way of organizing and keeping on top of your tasks that you know that you have to complete by a given date. When we created the task, there is a box where you just enter in your deadline. So this view is quite common, it's quite popular now. Say it's only been introduced, I would say in the last three or 4 months it's been introduced, and it's become a really big hit because obviously, as a visual term, you can clearly see what needs to be done and what is overdue. So theoretically, I would be there, because I'm still in the ongoing filter, these are still the tasks that I am responsible for completing. You can see now I would tend to work within this column. So it's a great way of working. There are other views. So planner. So a planner, again, it's a great way of organizing. A planner inside Bitrix is your own personal way of organizing your tasks. So previously we had the deadline that was fixed, and it's all based on the deadline that either yourself or another one of your team put in. But your planner is a tool where you can create your own stages. So your own columns here. I've got not planned, complete today, remote working, training tasks. And all I need to do, I think if you click on here, click on the cross icon to remove. If I was to move this one out, you can drag and drop tasks quite easily. So you can see here, if I just move some of these out, you can't delete columns if there is a task. So if I click on here and click on delete, you can't delete columns if there are tasks in it already. So that's quite an important. So we can just remove some of these. You can see how easy it is to remove. And then we'll just remove one more, and then I'll just show you how to add columns. So as I mentioned, this is your own personal view. So if I click back onto ongoing, these are my tasks that I'm responsible for. You can see I've got a complete today, so it might be that we can just drag and drop. I know then that I've essentially got a checklist of all tasks that I need to do today. We also have meetings every week. So if you want a new one, so I could say Tuesday meeting, and I can drag the tasks just easily, quickly, and organize them into the tasks into the column that I know I need to discuss in that Tuesday meeting. It's a great way of being able to organize your own task. Nobody else will see this in your organization. Nobody else will know what columns that your tasks are in. It's just your own personal way of keeping on top of the tasks inside Bitrix. So again, it's another great way to organize them. Another view you might be interested in is the calendar view. So again, this is relatively new inside Bitrix as well. Bitrix brought a calendar in to clearly see when your task deadlines are. So you can see the task that I've just created, onboard new employee, sat in the Friday at 10 a.m. I click onto it, slides open, and I can easily and quickly access that particular task to work on and communicate with the team on. And then finally, we have a Gantt chart view. So because I'm in my tasks at the moment, you can see it clearly says at the title of the page, these are all the tasks that I am responsible for at the moment. If I clicked on all, then I would be able to see all the tasks. Let's move into in progress because we don't want it to always show all the completed tasks. But you can see here, we can zoom out, slide across, and we can see when these deadlines have been, and so on and so forth. So this is a good view, and it's a particularly good view when we actually look at the projects in a moment and how we create those projects and look at the project in terms of a Gantt chart view. One thing that we haven't touched upon yet, if I go back to the list view and we'll go back to ongoing, is that I showed you how to create a task. Very simple, click on the new task button. But one key feature that Bitrix has is, let's say that you've got a repetitive task, a task that you need to complete very often and very frequently, but it's on an ad hoc basis. So it might not be every Monday, or it might not be the first Monday of every month. It just might be as and when an order comes in that you need to create a task. And you don't want to have to keep creating that task every time you get an order in. Bitrix has task templates that you can create and then easily and quickly add a new task from that template. All you need to do, click on the templates in the top menu here. If you don't see this in the top menu, the likelihood is that it's going to be in the More section here. So if I click into templates, and it's essentially exactly the same as what I went through a moment ago when we added a task. Click on Add Template, give it a, so we can say new employee onboarding, give it some details in here. We can add a checklist item, so we can say onboarding steps. So it's pretty much like we did a moment ago. So collect data, sign contract. I won't go through it all again, but I'll just show you a couple of the different options you have inside a template. You can make them dynamic, so we know every time that this task, we can preset that it's going to be, the deadline is going to be in, let's not go that far, let's say 3 days. And we can give it time planning, and we can have the options as well. Click on more. We can always assign it to a particular project. We can always assign it to a particular company. Probably wouldn't do that, but it might be this one where we say it's always going to be tagged as an employee. Now, one of the different features of this is the ability to assign access permissions of who can use this task template that you're creating. So at the moment, only myself, I'm logged in as Max Smith, would be able to use this task template to create tasks from. Instead, what we can do is I can give Joe, maybe not full task template access, because I don't want Joe to be able to edit this template itself. So we'll give her read template access, and that will mean that Joe can access it under my tasks. And instead of clicking on the new task here, click on the down arrow, and we'll click on new task using template, and then we can click on new employee onboarding, and it will be preset to everything that you've set within that task template. It's just such a quick way of being able to create tasks that are repetitive for your company, because like I say, we have when we sell an on-premise license of Bitrix, we know that an installing process has to take place. So we have a task template for Bitrix self-hosted installation, and then we have a series of steps that we follow, a series of items in the checklist. We know we don't have to keep creating it each time, because if we had to manually create it each time, the likelihood is that somebody will miss one of the steps that we need to do. You can spend time and focus on your task templates rather than having to create a task manually every time that you've got an order. So it's a fantastic way of creating tasks quickly and easily. I mentioned one of the areas when we were setting a start date and an end date to a task. What that allows you to do, it allows you to see when users are booked out for particular tasks. And this, again, this gives you quite a good way of your resourcing. So I know that one of our developers, for example, is booked out from the 10th of April until the 15th. He's blocked working on a particular client's project. So giving a task a start and end date therefore allows you to see when. So if I was to open up Max Smith here and click on this particular one, this is the task that we've just created. I gave it a start and end date of the 9 a.m. on Friday the 10th until 10 a.m. on Friday the 10th. So it just allows you to see. And obviously you can zoom in. So we can zoom in on here. If I scroll to Friday the 10th, you can see, and you can zoom in further and closer. You can also print these out. So if you ever wanted to print out a project plan, we'll go into projects in a moment, but you can print out the particular project Gantt chart on here. So if you need to take it into a meeting or you need to take it into a presentation, you can do so. Click on print, and then you'll be able to print to PDF if you wanted to. So that is how we can create tasks and some of the great tools of being able to organize and use tasks quite easily inside Bitrix. We've got around about 15 minutes remaining of this session, so let's just focus these 15 minutes on the project element of Bitrix, because you can see in my task list here that I have a project Buzzco, and I have a project Zoom Limited. So these are what clearly separates out my tasks that I'm involved in. Buzzco and Zoom Limited. So what I can do, let's go into work groups, and work groups are the place to create your projects. Last week's session focused on the use of work groups for collaboration, maybe in remote teams or departments and things like that. So if you are wanting to use work groups for your remote teams, or you're a marketing team and you want to all chat and talk with one another and store marketing assets, that's what you would use work groups for. But this session is just focusing on the project side of Bitrix. So if we click on Create and scroll down, we have three different types of projects. So we have an open project, we have a private project, and we have an external project. An open project just basically gives you, everybody in the organization will know that that project exists. They've clicked into work groups, and an example of an open project would be WowHow. You'd see the join. So I know that these exist. However, a private project, nobody would know that that private project existed inside Bitrix unless they were invited into it. So I'm going to go through inviting people into a project in a moment. We also have external projects. So if you've got one of the commercial packages of Bitrix and it allows you to have an extranet, what you can do is you can invite your clients into Bitrix. So it might be that you are working on a particular project that you want some involvement in from the client. That's when you would create an external project. You can invite external people directly into that project, and all they will see when they log into Bitrix is the project itself. They wouldn't see anything like your CRM or your marketing tools or your company structure. They would only log in and see the items in that particular external project. Nothing else. You can set permissions inside the project group, so you can restrict them accessing particular private documents or things like that. But yeah, it's just extranet users are completely unlimited for no extra cost. So you can invite, if you are using Bitrix for projects, you can just use external projects and invite external users in as many as you can. So we're going to create a private project. We give it a name, so we can say, let's call it onboarding employees. We give it a name, a description. We can upload an icon. So you can see here. I'd always recommend adding icons. It just makes it look a lot nicer and more categorized as such. We can give it a start and end date. So this is one of the different aspects of creating a project group inside Bitrix to actually creating a work group, because projects allow you to specify a start date and an end date, and if I said the end of the month, and anything that you try to add outside that range, Bitrix will prompt you and say, look, let's say, for example, I created a task and put a deadline of the 1st of May. It would not let me do that because it's defined as the project is the end of April. So it wouldn't let me add a deadline. And then you can just change that. We have 3 levels of membership inside a project. So we have the project owner. They've got the most access permissions. We have project moderators. So if I wanted to add Jack and Joe, this will add them in automatically. So it would always, in a project, and you add any moderators, it would add them in automatically without having them click on accept. And then finally, we can invite employees. So if I said Damien and Laura. Now, when you're inviting employees, it's a little bit different. They will receive a notification in their notification center up here, and they can refuse or accept their membership to this particular project. If you click on more, inside a project group, you have a whole range of different tools. So you have tasks, which are obviously an essential feature of a project group because projects are built up of numerous tasks. You have its own private project calendar. You have its own project document space, and that's what the drive is. We have a project messenger, so everybody inside this particular project can have a chat within the group itself. You can also have video and voice chat in there. It can have its own activity stream to post out messages to the project group, so everybody in the group will be notified. Photo galleries, lists, wiki. We can add external applications. A common one that people use for projects is the mind map application. So you could maybe add that in here. And then finally, we have a knowledge base. So particularly good if it's going to be a large project and you need to know maybe a glossary of terms or articles based on this particular project. Then we have some permissions. Who can invite people, new people to projects? I'm just going to say the project owner only. And then we can tag it again. So tagging is for searching. So I can add an employee tag. You don't need to worry about project types. Because I clicked on private project, it's automatically predefined. But once I click on create project here, it's going to create that space inside Bitrix. So this is your project space inside Bitrix. If you're not a member of this particular project, you will not know that it exists. You wouldn't be able to create a task and assign it to this project because you're not a member of the project. So you can see my project assistants have come in automatically. They didn't need to accept, but I'm still waiting on my additional 2 employees to accept membership to this particular project. So it's its own little space inside Bitrix. So I can communicate. So I can add a title on here. Welcome to the project. Ooh. And then we can add some here. And then we can add, like we did before, we have the ability to add files, links, embed videos, Vimeo and YouTube. We can tag people in. But you can see the 2 here. I'm only sending it to the onboarding employees project. So if I click into here now, that will then post it out to the activity stream. People can then like, comment. So somebody else might. So if I said Joe, tag in Joe here. You getting started, and then we can say send, and then again Joe will get a notification with a link to my chat inside the actual project space itself. So the whole point of projects is obviously collaboration. This is perfect for remote working because if you've been invited in, click in, this is your space inside. One of the main things, and probably the last thing that I'll just touch upon in here, because we did go through quite a lot of these different features in the workgroup collaboration session that we had last week. It is recorded and it is on the Bitrix24 YouTube channel. We obviously have a calendar. We went through all the features of a calendar. The drive is obviously a good space for projects because you can store project assets in here. Only the members of the group. So if I wanted to add a file, and let's just add our icon again in here. What we can do is actually assign permissions on the drive itself. So it might be that we don't want all project members to see this particular file, but what we can do is have project owner and the project assistants, and moderators in this case, can see the particular drive itself. So you can clearly define permissions on the document drive. Click on chat. You can have video, voice calls. You can have video and voice calls actually now in Bitrix up to 12 users, which is perfect for, again, remote working. I can have a conversation, hello. And then that will send a notification out to all of the group, the project group. And I can click on it and easily access it too. So again, if you're interested in the communication aspects, especially with remote working, 2 weeks ago, we had a session This is the third remote working session that we've had, and we focused on the use of instant messenger, video and voice calling internally, and the activity stream, posting news and things like that. So maybe have a check of that if you are interested in those kinds of communications inside Bitrix. With regards to onboarding employees, this particular project, you then have the ability to see all the tasks inside here. So let's go into the tasks module itself, and instead we can go back into the task that we created, scroll down, and let's remove it out of Buzzco, and let's add it back into our onboarding employees project. So if I come out of here now, you can see it's clearly separated into the new project, onboarding employees. If I click on that, it will take me to the onboarding employees project, and you can see here that it's clearly listed in this particular project. Now, the final thing to touch upon just within this project space, we also have all the different ways of viewing your tasks. The main difference with projects inside Bitrix is that every project that you create a workgroup space for, you can set project stages. So you click into here and we can create a new stage. So we could say in development maybe, and then you can create as many stages. This project Kanban that you create is visible to all the project members, and anybody that's involved in these tasks can start moving them along on here. Furthermore, on the project Kanban, you can actually set some automation. So we can configure some automation rules. So we can say change the status of a task to completed. There are a whole range of different automation rules in here, all related to a task. So you can edit it, you can send notifications, you can create list items if you're familiar with lists in Bitrix. You can change responsible person automatically. So finally, if I then was to drag this task into here, we would then be able to see, if I was to refresh, it's now gone because it's been completed. So if I was to take the in progress off, it would come back and you could see the status of this particular task has been set to completed. So hopefully it's given you, this session has given you an insight into the tasks capability inside Bitrix. It's only an hour. Obviously, there is a little bit more that we could discuss, and we can discuss on if you are going to start using tasks and project spaces. We have one of these live sessions on Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and that session covers everything inside Bitrix. We take your questions and answer any questions that you have revolved around the different modules of Bitrix. I can see there's been a couple of questions just about, can I use Bitrix24 for cold emailing? Absolutely. So you can use Bitrix24 for cold emailing. It has a CRM marketing module. I can show you that on the Thursday session, because you can set up automations and things like that to follow up. Are there any limitations for tasks on the free edition? I'm not 100% sure, in all honesty. Let's just take a look. To find out any limitations that the free package might have, you would just need to go to the Bitrix24 and then click on pricing, and then you can see it doesn't have everything. If it had everything, it would have the 3 blocks checked in here. And then if we scroll down to the tasks and projects, let's have a look here. So you can create unlimited amount of tasks, that's great, and an unlimited amount of projects. It's got everything. So the free version is here. So task dependencies, we have observers and participants you can't have, supervisor view, so you might not be able to see the involvement view, and you can't add custom fields. Task templates, it doesn't look like you can do. So it might be worth just upgrading to the Start Plus but it is a great way to compare because it's quite easy. So those are our contact details on the screen. Like I say, we are Bitrix24 Gold Partners. We're called Interface. My name is Andy. If you do have any questions, anything that we've covered today, or would like any support or pre-sales assistance, do get in touch with us either at sales@interface.com or send me an email to andy@interface.com. Or alternatively, we have an office in the US, the UK and the UAE. So please do give us a call. And yeah, so we have, like I say, we have one of the sessions on Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Hopefully you can join that one. I can show you and answer any questions live on the screen. Bye for now.